Am I the asshole for bringing my own food to a family fest? 2 years ago I discovered that gluten was one of my migraine triggers, so is sugar. The past 2 years has been a struggle to adapt my new eating habits, to not get migraines, alongside with stress. I have a chronic migraine and it's been a hell for that past 15 years. I've tried so many prescriptions from my doctor, got scanned in my brain for blood clot, tried everything to ease my pain, to cold caps, Zoc relief, massage, cold bath, nada and so on. But nothing ever really helped. Then 2 years ago I went to a retreat weekend. The food they served were gluten and lactose-free. I felt the very best I've been in a very long time. So when I get home I studied recipes for gluten-free food. I went to my doctor's and took a test to see if I was allergic to the gluten, but it showed negative and she said that gluten could be one of my triggers to migraine. So searched for food with no gluten and began the new lifestyle. I also began to bring my own food to the family gatherings at birthdays and holidays. My mother-in-law got very offended and asked if I didn't like her food. Of course not. I will admit, the first year was a struggle to adapt, and I did give in sometimes when I was offered a delicious cake with gluten and sugar. What can I say, I'm only human and I've been used to regular food for 40 years. My husband and I have many times explained to our families what gluten does to me, but his family doesn't really get it. So I bring my own food, and it's sometimes 10 times more delicious than some of our family members wants to taste a little. And then the last time we got to my father-in-law's birthday party, I saw that they had warmed some gluten-free buns and I got so happy. But my mother-in-law was quick to say that they were not for me. It was for our niece, her first grandchild, my husband's niece. She had just found out that she's allergic to gluten. And if she eats gluten, it can get so bad that she can't have children. She applied. Luckily I had my own gluten-free bread with me and I said, I'll just eat some of my own bread then. And my mother-in-law was quick to say that she'll warm some more buns for me then with an irritated gesture. My husband heard it all and defended me by saying, oh. So just because my wife is in her mid-40s and we're done having kids, then it's okay for her to eat gluten buns? He was so mad and I was so sad that they didn't take me very seriously for my health. So am I the A to bring my IWN food? Don't get me wrong, I do love my in-laws, and they love me, but sometimes they can be a little too much blindsided. Not the asshole, absolutely not ta. You're taking care of yourself. Mill is deliberately being obtuse, she is being petty and childish. She is taking offense where there is none, that's all on her and her own problem, issues and biasi. Ignore her, keep bringing your delicious food. Not the asshole. What the heck? Migraines is not a valid reason, but fertility issues is? Not the asshole. It sounds like your mother-in-law likes to be in control. Continue being the rebel and good for you for being proactive with your own health. Perhaps you could make some food for your niece to have as well at the next gathering. That is love from your mother-in-law to you? Some people take bringing your own food as a personal rejection. I have the same issues you do, and always bring my own food. Over the years, though, I've cut out a few places I will go to. What I do is always take enough to share and I ask the host ahead of time so I can make something compatible with their menu. These days, lots of people have triggers to something, and a wise host is always grateful to have an extra dish they can offer to guests in case of previously undeclared restrictions. You need to take care of your own needs, but it's good policy to work with your host to make things go smoothly for everyone. And always have something in your pocket for emergency situations. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. This is weird. I have a friend group and one of them was diagnosed with celiac a few years ago. Right away, we started incorporating gluten-free items at every gathering. At this point, probably 85% or more of the stuff we have is gluten-free. We all kinda modified some recipes, substituted ingredients, eliminated some others, and tried new things. We did it without thinking or even realizing because we love her. Your mother-in-law is an asshole. Am I the asshole for stealing back Pokemon cards my fiance's nephews took, and possibly taking extras? Hello all, I'm keeping this off my main as my family members know my ACCT and I don't want them asking me about it just yet. To set the background, I'm 29F, my fiance is 31M, and I have 3 children, 8F, 7F, 5M. Sometime last year my daughter Summer, the 8F, started collecting Pokemon cards that her bio dad would gift her during visitation. I haven't kept up with the fandom as I aged but collected coins as a kid and loved the idea of helping my daughter grow her collection. I have also supplemented the collection from Lucky Goodwill finds. It is about 5 binders worth of cards, with cards from between 1995 to 2018 generally and some are very rare. My sister-in-law asked my fiancé if we could babysit her 2 sons Peter, 8M, and Paul, 7M, while out of town for the weekend as she has to pick up her husband's nephew for something. I was not keen on this for a few reasons, being 1. Peter has to attend an alternative school for anger issues and outbursts, and though they have become less frequent, I wouldn't know how to handle it if something happens. 2. Peter has had issues in the past with stealing money from my fiancé and I when we would leave cash out in our room. His mom would get defensive about it, but $10 was never something I'd die on a hill for, so I'd usually drop it. 3. Peter has also tried stealing my daughter's Pokemon cards in the past or my DBZ cards. I took them back, but it blemished my relationship with my sister-in-law a tad. Despite all this, I hoped the weekend could go smoothly as she needed the help, so me and fiancé agreed. However, last night while I was at work, Summer called me and asked if she could give her Pokemon cards to Peter. I could hear Peter whispering in the background. I was very clear in saying no because I couldn't advise if there would be a fair trade or if he would take the more valuable cards. Later I asked my daughter if she really wanted to give him the cards and she said no. This morning while tidying my daughter's room I saw all the Pokemon binders out. I had a bad feeling, opened them up, and discovered half the collection missing. The binders were full, but now there were empty pages and scattered cards missing. I was pissed. I went to Peter's backpack and found some of my DBZ cards, my other daughter's full rock collection, and a massive plastic bag with a bunch of Pokemon cards dumped in. I took everything back and sorted my daughter's cards from Peter's, though I was just going by the cards' print dates as Peter only had cards from 2022 and beyond, so I thought. I put the sorted cards in a lunchbox. I told my fiancé at the time this, but Peter and Paul have noticed their card stash is much lighter and started whining and saying that their aunt gifted them some older cards that are missing. I'm sick and tired of them thinking they can just steal whatever they want from our house. Am I the asshole for not giving them any cards back, even if some are actually theirs? I'm worried they'll complain to my sil. Not the asshole. Honestly, the petty in me says if you accidentally had a few of his cards, it's karma for being a little terrorist. If he complains to his mom, I hope she lets him know these are the consequences of being that way, and hope he learns a lesson. If mom comes at you instead, it sounds like a perfect segue to the conversation regarding no future babysitting. Not the asshole, but tell your sister-in-law before they do. When there are conflicts among children, it's important for all the parents to work together on this. Just explain that they took tons of your kids' cards, and you did your best to recover the correct cards. They are now claiming that you took some of theirs, but you don't believe them. And even if you did take a few by accident, that's a reasonable consequence for stealing. And then do not give in or negotiate. You were the parent in charge for the weekend, and you did your best. That's all there is to it. Not the asshole. But seriously, don't let them come over. Not the asshole. You don't know if they're telling the truth anyway. But you do understand that you can't have them in your home again or unsupervised with your daughter, right? It's not fair to your children to let kids that pressure them and steal from them in their home. Your fiancé can see the kids at their house if he wants to help his sister again. Not the asshole. You didn't steal back, you recovered stolen property. Peter has a history of taking things. You explicitly said no when they tried to pressure your daughter, and then half her collection magically disappeared overnight? That's not a coincidence. Not the asshole. This isn't a court that needs to prove each distinct card that was stolen before it is reclaimed. This is a police situation where you caught a robber with a swag bag of stolen money and he claims some of it was his money mixed in. Too bad, all confiscated. Don't let the kids be confused. There still needs to be a punishment, and the children shouldn't be allowed in your house again. Sometimes kids steal and they usually outgrow it, but only with consequences. Am I the asshole for not paying for my boyfriend's, 27 male, part of our holiday? My boyfriend, 27 male, and I, 26 female, have been together since May 2024. I work full-time. He didn't have a stable job when we met and was living with his parents. When we met, I already had a trip to Egypt planned for September 2024. My friend dropped out, and while I wanted to go with my mom, my boyfriend insisted on coming. I agreed on the condition that he'd pay his share, €1,200, up front. Around the same time, I moved into a new apartment. He really wanted to join, so I fronted the rent, €2,000, deposit, €3,000, and other basics, with the agreement he'd pay me back and we'd split ongoing bills proportionally. I earn more. He started self-employment, but for Egypt he only paid €700, leaving €500 outstanding. Despite many reminders, he only began repaying in April 2025 with €25 to €50 per month. He still owes about €350. He's also months behind on rent payments to me, and has never contributed to the first month or deposit. Meanwhile, I work full-time and he only works 13 hours a week. In February 2025, I mostly paid for a ski trip. I also told him he needed to get a job since his business wasn't enough, but he replied, "I don't want to and won't work full-time." He later suggested we go to Thailand in November 2025. I agreed, but said if he couldn't afford it by end of August 2025, I'd go with someone else. He said not to worry, he'd save. Over the months, I pushed him to work more and save, but he brushed it off, even texting. I don't feel like explaining every month that it will work out. Now it's the end of August. He's 2 months behind on rent, still owes me for Egypt, and never repaid the first rent deposit. Recently he said he started applying for jobs, which I was glad about. But when I wanted to book Thailand, since prices are rising, he told me to book the tickets and he'd pay me back later. I refused. He then accused me of screwing him over if I went without him, said he'd pay for me if roles were reversed, and even called me an asshole for not doing the same. This really hit me wrong, because I've already paid so much for him and we've been having this same fight since February. So, am I the asshole for not paying for my boyfriend's holiday? If roles were reversed, his actions thus far have shown that roles will never be reversed. You don't have a partner, you have a dependent. Unless you want to keep carrying both of you, it's time to close your wallet and let him figure it out. Not the asshole for refusing to pay. Asshole to yourself if you keep letting him leech off you. Don't worry, I've got a plan. You can pay for everything so I won't have to. I told you it would all work out. Not the asshole. Info: why are you still dating this guy? The only thing going for him is he has a pulse. The jobless guy that was living with his parents owes you money, big surprise there. Send him back to his parents and be grateful you are only out a few thousand. Please be extra careful with your birth control. I'm sorry, but I don't think you'll get most of that money back. He's a leech, and he clearly doesn't respect you or appreciate all you've done for him. You deserve better. But very poor judgment on your part. This is not a man who understands living within his means. He can't afford rent. He can't afford to pay back his girlfriend, but he's suggesting a trip to Thailand and you agreed? That makes no sense. And he has an ego about being an entrepreneur but not enough integrity to make sure he is making enough money to cover his part of the rent. He never should have moved in, and it would be in your best interest to have him leave while he figures out his financial situation. Also, only loan money with the expectation you'll never get it back. Not the asshole, yet. But if you do not get rid of this lazy moocher, then you will be. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay rent to my late brother-in-law's parents? I'm looking for clarity and help figuring out what's right in this situation. I, 37F, am currently living in my late brother-in-law's condo. Let's call him Jeff. The condo is jointly owned by Jeff and his parents. At the time of Jeff's passing, he was still legally married to my sister, although they were separated. That said, they had been discussing reconciliation, and just a week before his death, he was still intimately involved with her. Despite this, Jeff's parents have refused to recognize my sister as his spouse. They've also taken possession of the 2 dogs that Jeff and my sister shared. One of the dogs has vet records listing my sister as the sole owner, and the other is listed as co-owned by both Jeff and my sister. It's been 2 months since Jeff passed, and his parents have completely cut off communication with my sister, blocking her on all platforms. She has now hired a lawyer and is beginning the probate process to claim what is legally hers, including any portion of Jeff's estate she may be entitled to. As for me, I had been paying monthly rent directly to Jeff through Apple Pay, though we never signed a formal lease. After everything that's happened, I've decided to stop sending payments to his parents until they agree to speak with my sister and address her rightful claims. In response, they've threatened to involve the authorities. I am actively looking for a new place to live and plan to move out as soon as possible. But in the meantime, I'm left wondering, am I the asshole for getting involved? Should I have stayed out of it completely? Keep the money earmarked in an account, and just tell them or their lawyers you are going to deal with estate lawyers, probate. That you no longer trust them because they are doing illegal things, aka dogs, etc. Grief does weird things to people. Sorry for your loss. Not the asshole. You were paying him, not them. Set up an account and keep moving funds there, same as your agreement you had with him, and when probate is decided it'll either be your sister's money, his parents' money, or your money. You're not the asshole, and unexpected death without explicit estate plan, it can drag out and be messy. Glad your sister decided to get a lawyer. Jeff's parents have refused to recognize my sister as his spouse. Their view of the status of the relationship is irrelevant. Unless the laws of your jurisdiction are wonky, she will almost certainly be ruled his spouse for legal purposes. You cannot unilaterally decide that you don't want to pay rent because of their treatment of your sister. You are putting yourself in jeopardy with this unsupportable position that you are taking. Unless brother-in-law had a will leaving his half to his parents, it would go to your sister. Your sister and her in-laws probably won't want to remain partners. Someone will have to buy the other out. They might be forced to sell it and split any equity, if any. This is not an asshole question, but there's definitely a need to seek advice to protect everyone's interests. Personally, I'd set up an escrow account to pay rent into to protect your tenancy rights, such as they are, and then let your sister and her in-laws deal with the estate issues, including who owns the condo. I'm very sorry for your and your sister's loss. This isn't a Reddit advice situation. Talk with your sister and her lawyer to figure out what her rights are and what's the best strategy to take. Unless she's fully on board and or her lawyer thinks this a great move, I'm going to go with Esh. But dude, this isn't am I the asshole situation. It's a get professional legal advice situation.